if you're always doing stuff for people and not allowing them to grow and fail and stuff like that, and that's what I'm learning with kids too, is it's like if I always just go and do it for them, what growth are they going to have and what learnings are they going to have and stuff. And so I think as you were talking about some of those things you're going with and like, hey, I'll just go do it. It'll take me 2 minutes where I'm going to spend 30 trying to explain it to you, and I'm probably going to end up doing it at the end anyways.
Hey guys, this episode is brought to you by Overstock Dixie. You can go like and follow their Instagram. There's new items that pop up on there every day, multiple times a day. Anything from furniture to tools, electronics, pretty much anything you're looking for. Hey guys, welcome back to the Derick Leg Podcast. We're back in the vault today, episode 96. I've got one of my longtime buddies, he's probably the earliest friend that I really remember. So this is going to be cool to kind of catch up. He's moved out of state, doing his own thing with work and whatnot. So it's going to be kind of us catching up as well. So you guys get to witness that. Hopefully it's entertaining for you. Today, for our guest, we've got Vic Crane. How's it going, man?
Hey, Derick. Good. How you doing?
Dude, I'm excited for this. It's fun for me to just bring in friends and just kind of BS and just talk through different subjects.
Heck yeah.
So we've kind of prepared nothing. So we'll see. We'll see where this goes.
The only thing we prepared was a date and a time to meet up. So
yeah,
it's good.
I think that the first thing to start would be you're here for the Ironman.
Yeah.
So can we talk through that a little bit? Like what got you on doing Ironmans, dude, and just kind of talking through that.
Yeah. So probably maybe like 2020 going into the pandemic, where we currently live, I was kind of looking for something to do. Obviously, a lot of things were shut down, but a local bike shop did a lot of like rides and stuff like that, road cycling and stuff. And so I wanted to try and get into that, get a little bit more in shape and, be a little bit more fit. And so what I did is I kind of went around, and obviously it started with buying a road bike. And so then some of the people I went out with, had the Ironman tattoo on their calf and stuff. And so I just kind of like said, hey, what, can you tell me about those or what it is? And some of them had just done one and just kind of say they'd done it. And some of them like make a lifestyle out of it, like they've gone to a bunch and done multiple or dozens of Ironmans and stuff. And so it really wasn't, I was like, man, that's something that I'll never end up doing and stuff. And as the pandemic went on, I kept riding with them in groups and stuff and doing more cycling and things. And growing up, I really didn't mind swimming at the local pool here, the Washington pool and stuff. I spent a lot of summers there. So swimming was kind of like natural for me, and cycling was kind of easy. I never really was much of a runner. And as cycling progressed and I started doing longer rides and like 50, 70-mile rides like nothing, and they're a little bit of an effort, but wasn't that much. And then last year I actually did my first century ride, so 100-miler ride. And I'm like, well, heck, if I can do this, why don't I try something a little bit different? And that's when I started like pushing myself to try running and started, getting a couple miles under my belt and then pushing it further and just kind of progressed from there. It was like, hey, let's give this a shot. And then it was kind of something I wanted to come back to, because growing up here, it's like I don't really have any connection to Ironmans anywhere else or anything like that. But at least here, I was like, hey, this is where I grew up. This is home. Opportunity for my family to come and support me, any loved ones, friends and stuff. We got some high school buddies that are coming up or coming out from the area, and stuff. And so it was like a good opportunity to come, give myself something to aim for and just train for and stuff. And so
is it just like the challenge for you? Was it just taking on a challenge? And it's funny, man, because like you surrounded yourself with those guys that were cycling.
Right.
And then it just, like you just kind of become that group.
Yeah.
And like your goals kind of mesh, right? And it's interesting just in life, dude, that happens.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I think it's one of those things where, like who you associate with, it kind of like pushes you to be that, or want to push more. And you like say, hey, these guys can do something more, or these guys or girls even, they can push themselves to be something more, do something more. And so it's like, instead of just sitting here on the couch watching these people do these amazing things, why not me and stuff? And so I was thinking to myself, like, yeah, why can't I do something like that? And so,
well, dude, you're very nonchalant about it, but that's like a big commitment.
Yeah. And that's what I'm starting to realize now is like going through this, because I've been going through my mind like 1,000 times, like, all the nutrition, all the training and stuff. And to be honest with you, that's where I started like tuning into the podcast. I don't know when exactly episode 1 launched and stuff, but I was like, hey, maybe this is just something that Derick's doing, just kind of catching up with some friends. And obviously you've gotten more episodes and stuff, but I don't know if I texted you, or I remember like times I was commenting on some stuff where I was just like busting my butt, sweating in my basement, in the middle of winter with feet of snow outside, and nothing else going on. And I'm just sitting there listening to the podcast while I've got a 3-hour ride on my trainer I've got to do, so I'll have a few in the queue and just do episode after episode and stuff. And it's like the podcast helped me get through it. And then obviously, our school buddies that said, hey, if we're coming on here, then it's my turn next. And so I was like, well, I'm in town, I'll hit you up. So
yeah, no, this is great, dude. It's funny, dude, because just thinking, even when I thought about starting the podcast, like I didn't know if anyone would listen. Like I'm sure my mom would tune into a couple,
Yeah.
And I know, and you're one of them. I know there's people that are, they've listened to just about every one of them.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's super, it's cool for me, but it's also cool that really what the podcast is a platform for other people. Right.
Yeah.
I just kind of direct the conversation, but it's really for other people to come on and tell triumphs and struggles and
right.
And maybe promote something that they're doing or whatnot. But
yeah, that's been the biggest thing for me, listening to the podcast. Like a lot of the high school guys and gals that we went to, like I can relate to them. Some other people I don't really relate to too much, but that's kind of what's been in it for me, is like as I've grown older and stuff like that, and we'll get into it later, when we talk about Nicole and stuff, but it's like these people are just humans and they have trials, they have challenges, stuff that was on the surface with, me and you's friendship and stuff like that. Like, didn't know anything that was going on behind the scenes. It was just a place where I'd come to your house, play some Game Boy and Pokemon and stuff like that, or some Perfect Dark and stuff. And it was like, that's what we did as kids growing up and stuff. And you don't know everything that's going on when you're not there, and it's like, it really opens your eyes to show, like, how do you have this human interaction with people and really, like, understand where they're coming from and, what makes Derick, what makes Vic, and stuff like that, and that's really what the podcast has done for me, to help, peel back some of those layers on some of these people that I know and hung out with. And I was like, man, I didn't even know any of that stuff.
Yeah. No, dude, thanks for saying that. There's times, and I've talked about it a lot recently because it's hit me more recently, but I'm just like, dude, is it still like, is there more things to say? Is it still hitting people the way I want it to? Like, is it still worth it? Because I still get comments and people message and reach out to me. So like, I think, hell, the hour I spend here and what it costs me to do the podcast, like I still think it's worth it.
Yeah.
But sometimes you just get like that dark thought in your mind and you're like, is this stupid? Like, could I be doing something else that's more productive? Right. Yeah. And so like I had a guy stop me in the grocery store a few weeks ago, and I didn't know him. Like I just walked by him and he's like, hey man. And like, I kind of turned around. I'm like, who are you? And he's all, love the podcast. And he like just kept walking. And I was like I don't want to say like I'd encourage people to do that more, but like, it's cool for me to be like, okay, like I would never be in front of that guy.
Yeah.
But for some reason, he maybe had a friend on or a family member or whatever, and he tuned into maybe not even an episode. Maybe it's just the social media clips, right? And that kind of like cued him off to it. But well, let's just segue into Nicole, dude. So you got your shirt on.
Yeah. No, I love the shirt and I love the aspect and stuff like that. But, I think for me, like the whole Nicole thing, like rallying around that whole situation with her and you, and kind of the connection that you and her have to the Webb Hill and things like that, and the events that transpired there and stuff. And I was like, that's pretty powerful. But then it like spiraled into something more where you just felt the need to like get on the high school Facebook page and like say, hey guys, let's rally around this. There's something more to it and stuff like that. And so I was like, life for me has kind of gotten, I don't want to sound boastful, but it's like it's gotten to be more successful, right? And so it's like, I think as people become more successful, why don't we rally around situations like that and give and stuff like that? And it's like, there's people out there that have less or are less fortunate for whatever reason. And it's like, how can we participate more? And me living away, it's like, I can't be here. I couldn't have went to the gala or the dinner, whatever you guys want to call it that you had and stuff. And it's like, so when you guys had the shirts it's like, yeah, that's something that we can rally around and give those, dollars to a cause that means something.
Yeah.
And so from there, I was like, yeah, let's get some shirts. I think even my sisters and stuff that had no, personal relationship with Nicole or anything like that, just wanted to rally behind the cause, bought some shirts and stuff. So I thought that was pretty cool, right? But then I keep this shirt in my closet and I wear it periodically because, not because of her situation, just in life in general, it's always like a reminder for me that people are going through hard times and you don't know what they're going through. And so the shirt for me is always a reminder, like somebody out there is struggling. And in this case, it's, what we did for Nicole and stuff. But even on the back, that quote, there will be miracles or whatever it says on the back. And it's like, that's just a constant reminder for me to do something. And so then, I don't know, a year or so ago when I came back to visit after the whole situation, me and my family actually went over to her house and met up with her and stuff like that and wanted to meet her because I was like, I have 3 girls now at home and was able to bring them in. And I'm like, you know what, this is a girl or a lady or a woman now that, I want my kids to know about and wanted to meet her and stuff like that and hear her story and at least have that personal interaction to say like, hey, we didn't have any relationship in school. I didn't even really know kind of who you were or what you did or anything like that. But I wanted to show that love, to show like, hey, there's people out there that you might not know that really care and that want to do something for you and try and help. And, I can't do that on the daily, but I think there's times and circumstances and situations that you can reach out to somebody or do something, put in a little effort, and I think it makes a big difference. And so, like I said, it's just a constant reminder for me to know that there's people out there struggling. I'm struggling. You're struggling. We all go through challenges in life, and it's just a good reminder for me to maybe turn it back a little bit and kind of humble myself and be like, how can we treat these people like humans,
Yeah. That whole situation for me, I felt tied to it, right? For the same location my dad took his life, and going kind of when the first message I think I put out to our Facebook school group was just, hey, everyone kind of wants to help, but kind of more like someone step up and do it, I guess, was kind of what I was trying to get across. And to be honest, I was like, this isn't my place. I was like, and I'm not calling anyone out, or that's not the point of this, but I was like, there was friends, again, dude, I had a class or two with her. Yeah. I didn't know her really well. I kind of thought we have student council, we had her friends could have done something. And I've told this story, but I was telling Amanda at night, I was like, hey, I'm just kind of frustrated. I wish someone would step up and do something about it. Yeah. And everyone's there ready to rally, but just no one's taking the lead. Mm-hmm. And she was like, well, you're sitting here complaining about it and you're also not taking the lead, Yeah. And so it just kind of kicked me into being all right, and so I kind of drove off of that of okay, this is my connection to it. Mm-hmm. And so I'll jump in and take the lead and but it was so cool to see. My struggle with all of it was I was getting praise, and I'm like, dude, I am I just orchestrated it, but Travis designed the shirts. We got the shirts done. You did the storyboard that you put together for her. There was a lot of people that dove in. My family helped out with the restaurant, and mm-hmm. Justin Watts got all the food donated and
did the wristbands and stuff.
The wristbands, right? Brandon jumped in and did all. And so there was it was weird for me because even her family and oh, thank you for doing this. And I'm look, I just delegated the whole thing, right. But no, it was a cool thing. It was for me too. It was a reminder for me. I still check in with her every now and then and see how things are going. But I've told her, it was maybe a year after the event, we were just texting back and forth, and she was like, I don't remember what it was about. But I just told her, I'm like, hey, I want you to know that we're tied together for life now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And not even just because we threw an event, but things that you've been through are similar to things that I've been through, and we've seen both sides of it. You're part of my story and right. I'm part of yours. Yeah. So if there's anything you need, reach out to me. And, yeah. And I don't know, dude, it was a cool thing for me. I also we were days away from having our kid. That's and crazy. So it was funny because for me, it was almost like a distraction from the stress of having our first kid.
Mm-hmm.
And like I had people being like, why are you taking this on? And I'm like, I think it's actually helping me. Like, I think my brain works like that, the more I have, like, eventually I break. Yeah. But like the more I have in the moment, the more I'm just pushing forward.
Right.
And like there's actually a book I'm listening to right now. It's on like ADHD brain. I'm going to butcher the title, so let me look it up. I think it's called Faster Than Normal.
Yeah.
Have you heard of that?
No.
So Faster Than Normal, Peter Shankman. And I've heard of Peter Shankman as an author, but he talks about like ADHD and how it's like a superpower if you know how to leverage it, right? Mm-hmm. And like I've always kind of felt that way with things in my life. Like the more I have going on, the more productive I am. Like and it's not even like I'm great under pressure, because I wouldn't say that I am. Yeah. But just when my brain is like at full capacity, that's when I'm my most productive.
Yeah, right.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. It's not a plug for them, and you can edit this part out, but it's like when we were driving, because we drove here, and it's like we saw this van that had this, it was a business, and it was ADHD movers, and then their slogans was, we can't stop moving. So as you were talking about ADHD, I was thinking about them, and I sent that to one of the buddies I hang out with back home, because it's like he has that and he can't stop moving and stuff, but it's like that's the perfect business name and business motto, is like those two go together.
That's freaking clever. Yeah. And you drove out here.
Yeah.
Dude, how long was that drive?
It was like 2 days, 2 14-hour days.
And you stay and sleep and...
Yeah. We pulled a pop-up trailer with us and stuff, so we just like stopped on the side of the interstate at an RV park and just camped and stuff.
Did you guys stop and see anything? Pretty drive straight through kind of?
In Wyoming, there on the I-80, there's like a statue of Lincoln for the Lincoln Memorial Highway that's I-80. Uh-huh. So we just saw that, but I mean, most of the time we're just pushing through just to get here and stuff, so...
How old are your kids?
The oldest is 7, and then the second one's 3, and then the youngest just turned 2.
Oh, so you got a big gap between the first and second.
Yeah, some unfortunate events there. I had some miscarriages and stuff, so it's like, some trials there, and it's like one of those things that's like, I don't really know what it's about or what it's like until you go through it, you know what I mean? And I didn't think it would affect me as the dad like it would the mom, and it really wasn't until you're like there in the hospital and stuff and like going through that it's like, yeah, that was a big loss and, a miss. And then your mind's thinking about like, what did we miss out on, or what can we be, or, that kind of stuff, all these thoughts, and just seeing like my wife have those, heart crushing moments and stuff that's why the gap's there on the side tangent, like you said, but it's like, one of those things you don't really know what you go through until you actually start talking to people. And it's like, that's one of those things that are more common than not, that it seems like, once people start opening up about them and stuff.
Yeah. A lot of people, I mean, we've never, my brother's experienced that multiple times, one of my brothers, but we haven't, I wouldn't wish that upon anyone watching them go through it.
Yeah.
And, I don't know, dude, it's rough.
All right.
What else you got?
Yeah, no, I was thinking, as kids growing up and stuff, one of the things that, as you were talking with Blake, you guys like remembered a whole lot more about childhood than I did and stuff. But as I was like going through my mind and stuff and remembering whatnot, I actually remember like when you guys moved into town, right, and built that house there on the street and stuff. And it was like, I remember you guys had them 4 columns out front and stuff, and I always like looked at that house and I was like, dude, these guys must be loaded. This place is a freaking mansion. We had like this little shack up on the hill and stuff with some rocks that my dad drug in from one of his jobs, and stuff. And then we'd come down there and I was like, dude, this place is massive. And then we'd go in and it was like, a pretty decent sized house and stuff. And I was like, dude, these guys got it together. And then we started hanging out and stuff, and it was like, had some good times and whatnot. And I don't know, I just remember running around Washington, with a bunch of the kids and the group of friends that we had and stuff. And like your older brothers, there were some older kids in the neighborhood that played. And like you guys made mention, we played City League and stuff. And It's like, those are some of the good times that I remember growing up in Dogtown there. It was like hanging out, going to Washington City. I still remember those cheap maroon and silver reversible jerseys, that we were always playing with and like swapping them around and whatnot. And even one of your brothers like being our soccer coach there one time and stuff. And I remember like playing soccer and stuff. And it's like, yeah, this is good stuff. And, you know, just hanging out, growing up like we did in Dogtown. I thought, you know, those were some good times. You drive around there now and you wouldn't even recognize what the heck's going on. And I'm like, dude, there's a apartment complex where I used to go and play in some sand dunes or drive an old motorbike or something like that, you know. And it's like, this place has changed so much that it's like a lot of our childhood memories now, even like the bowl and the jumps. I don't know if you remember that out by like where Nixon and stuff used to live. It's like, dude, all that's a gas station and everything now. I'm like,
crazy.
Anything that I wanted to show my kids what I used to do growing up now is a concrete jungle. It's like, that's crazy.
Kids just don't grow up like that anymore, dude, right?
Right.
I mean, I remember like when Walmart went in. Yeah. And I remember I like rode my bike to Walmart once.
Yeah.
And to think that kids would do that nowadays, like, I mean, they'd probably be on like their electric scooter or something. Yeah. I don't know, but we just grew up different, man.
Yeah.
Like it was, I mean, I remember one year for Christmas, we all got bikes, like red line racing bikes. And we thought we were just the shiz, you know? Yeah. And we'd be gone, start to get dark. We'd be like, well, we better head home, you know? And I think like my mom must have just trusted my older brothers fully because we would just disappear, you know? And like, maybe she was aware, but in my mind, like we were just gone. Yeah. And then at nighttime, we're like, maybe we jump in a friend's house and use their phone off of their house, right? And call home. Yeah. Right. It's so different now.
Yeah, or even another place that's like an actual park now is the Boilers, man. I remember that was like one of those sketchy places you'd go to as a kid and it was all shut down or whatever. And now it's like this city park here and stuff. So, I mean, kudos to the city and the town too. Like a lot of stuff they've revived and makes it look better and a lot more safer and a lot more family and stuff friendly. Even like driving down Main Street with 2 lanes now and a median that's all crazy and stuff. It's like, you know, the place looks great for sure, but, you know, having old Nisons and stuff right there that was like had the penny candies and stuff that's not even a building, not even there anymore, you know, you wouldn't even know and stuff. And so it's like some of those childhood memories, it's unfortunate they're not there. The burger place, you know what I mean, going and getting a student special. I know some people talk about that, or even like the pizza place, they're adding on something now and I think it's the pizza place, but I remember we'd go get food there from high school and stuff, you know, and so, no, a lot of good stuff, though, and I think the next thing, you know, is kind of like transition into those high school years and stuff, and I think, you know, when I look back on that and, like, how I got to where I am now and stuff, it's like, thinking about high school, to be honest with you, like, I didn't even really care. I thought high school was a joke and a waste of time and, like, didn't even see the point of it, right? And it just something I went to get a high school diploma just so my parents would get off my back, right?
Yeah, maybe hang out with some friends.
Yeah. So I wanted
a social thing for sure for me.
I like didn't go to any of the dances or maybe one or something. I knew in high school I didn't go to like any of the assemblies or anything like that, and tried to be as least active as possible, just kind of go to classes. But I remember like homework and stuff was something I didn't enjoy, but it wasn't hard, right? And so something like a math homework or something, I'd come in and it might be due that day and I'd be doing it in English or something like that, you know, and then turn it in that day. And it really wasn't like something I really cared about, but it didn't really come that hard for me, right? And so I didn't think much of it. I enjoyed the auto shop and the wood shop and stuff like that. Like those were my 2 classes that I just absolutely loved and stuff. And I know you and Blake talked a lot about like the ball and stuff that we played, you know, growing up and stuff. And I even mentioned it, but it's like, even then I was thinking about it, like I didn't enjoy practice. I didn't put in the effort or the work or anything like that. And so it was like, I didn't want to play in high school sports because I didn't care about the off season practices and stuff like that. And I also thought to myself, like, I know I'm not good enough. At the time I was thinking that, I was like, I'm not good enough to go pro or even really go to college. So like, why even care to put in time now when I could do something else? And like at the time, skateboarding was a pretty big thing for me, you know, and hung out with some buddies, did skateboarding and stuff. But it's like, that's where I went to. And so then after high school, like I had no desire to go to college or anything like that, right? But it wasn't until like I got a job out of high school and I was just kind of there working. Wasn't a bad job. I was just chilling. You know, there were people there that I interacted with, no big deal. But it was like I started having this thought process in my mind that like these people, what they look forward to is the weekend. And what they look forward to on the weekend is just going and getting drunk and getting hammered and doing all this stuff, right? And it's like, at what point do I want that to be my life, or do I want to do something different? And so that's when, like, in the back of my mind, my mom's voice was always like, oh, you need to go to school, Vic. You need to go to school.
She does not sound like that, by the way.
but I mean, she was a high school teacher, right?
Yeah.
So she taught school. So I think that was just something big for her, right? And so, like, growing up and stuff too, I always wanted to, like, do something with my life. But then as things transpired, like I said, I was sitting there working. I was like, I don't want this to be the rest of my life. I don't want my life to end here doing this, and I don't know what I'm looking forward to, right? Like, what's next? Is it just job to job here in Dogtown and trying to make ends meet? Because it's like one thing, and I don't know who said it, but one thing that's always, like, been in the back of my mind that's just constantly gotten me to where I am is, like, if you're not as good as your parents were, or if you're not as well off as your parents were, then your lifestyle is not going to be as good as what you had. And so in, like, my mind, I'm always thinking, like, I have to make or do as much as they did growing up, or else I'm not going to be able to have the lifestyle I had as a kid, right?
Yeah, like that's the baseline.
Yeah. So, like, if I at least want to do that, I got to be as successful as they were. And so that's when I was like, okay, I'll give this college thing a shot, right? And so, like any Southern Utah kid, your first option's D-State, right? So I don't even know if that's the college nowadays. I don't think so. But
I still call it Dixie.
Yeah, D-State was where I was at. And so my first semester was a total blow up, right? I went in, got the loans, and did all that stuff. And I think I went to, like, 1 or 2 classes and, like, tried to take it serious, but I really didn't. I passed a couple of them and just kind of was like, okay, that was my college experience. And so then the second semester came around, and I don't know if it was that one or the third, but somewhere along the lines, like, I got this letter notice saying, like, hey, your grades weren't up to par. We're not going to be able to give you loans again if you want to continue and going to college, all right? And so I was like, dude, I better shape up now.
So that was kind of the kick in the pants.
Yeah, so it was like, either you're going to make this work or you're not, right? And so, oddly enough, when I went in and I started taking it serious, I remember sitting in college class there at Dixie, and I was, in a chemistry class, and I was just thinking about it because my mom was always like, engineers make a lot of money and you're good with math and stuff like that. So, like, why not, try and look into something that you like? And I was at the time, quite frankly, I didn't even know what an engineer did or what they do or anything about them, right? And I was like, okay, yeah, that sounds cool. And then I remember sitting in a chemistry class. It was like intro to chem or something basic in, D-State. And so I was just sitting there and I was like, I like chemistry. And so then I started looking into it and I was like, oh, there's a chemical engineering degree, right? And then I started, like, looking into what it really takes. And I was like, sure, let's try it, let's see. And then oddly enough, one of my high school buddies that I, was hanging out with, he was a year ahead of us, was in the same chemistry class. And he oddly enough wanted to do the same degree. And so I was like, hey, you're here, I'm here. Like, we got to go the same route. Do you mind? Let's just hang together and let's get through this degree, And so we actually went through Dixie and got our associate's degree, John Lamb.
Okay.
And so, I mean, he was pretty soft, easy, chill guy, but it's like we started taking our calculus classes together and, all of our math and science and just general classes that we took together. And it was like, pretty cool to have someone there with you, right? I didn't really know what I was getting into, but a lot of people always said, like, chemical engineering is a pretty difficult degree. But I think it's one of those things like the Ironman and stuff. Maybe it was just like the challenge or something to do. And it was just like, hey, let's focus and try and do something there, right? And so obviously we graduated Dixie, and then there's only 2 schools in the whole state of Utah, or at the time, I don't know if there's more now, but there's only 2 schools, the University of Utah and BYU, that offered a chemical engineering bachelor's degree, right? And so we both ended up going to University of Utah and going through the program and stuff together there. And it's like, a lot of people think, wow, this chemical engineering degree and stuff. And I don't know, I look back and I'm like, yeah, it was tough, but it's not like impossible, right?
Right.
And I think it's one of those things that maybe to parallel with what you do and stuff like that is like, do you set your mind to it and you just want to get it done, right? Because in my opinion, I think if anybody's determined enough, they can get whatever degree they want, But, as I started looking into that degree and stuff, it started like opening my mind about what engineers and what chemical engineers and the possibilities that you can do, right? So I think a lot of our curriculum was centered around like refineries, oil refining. So taking like crude oil and turning it into gasoline or propane or, all the different substances that come from a barrel of crude oil, right? Kind of what chemical engineering was originally revolved around a lot of our classroom studies. But there's so much more than that, and that's what opened my eyes about it, is like food manufacturing, pharmaceuticals, any and everything, like somehow, some way a chemical engineer, not just them, but engineers are involved, right? And so I was like, that's pretty cool, right? Because you're not just going to go and sit behind a desk and stuff. And so,
yeah, a lot more hands-on with it.
Yeah, right.
I mean, what were some of the things, do you have a story or anything that what you went through, something in college that you just had to buckle down, and like any lessons?
No, I don't think that there's one particular one. I think, once you get your generals behind you, it's like time to buck up and say, okay, we're in it for the long haul now. And I think that first real like undergrad year, they call it junior year, is like where people start dropping like flies. That first semester of junior year, where it's like, okay, now you're really getting into your engineering classes, like your thermodynamics, your fluids, your mass transfer, things like that, and it's like, that's where people start. It's either not clicking or it is clicking for them, I guess. And, to be honest with you, it really wasn't like an aha moment or anything like that. But what it was to me was like, I had a wife at the time, and I still have the same wife, right? But we didn't have kids. And she was working days as a CNA, and I was going to school, right? And so we were living in like a 1-bedroom studio place and barely making ends meet on her income while I was going to college. But it was like, for me, waking up at 7, getting to class by like 8 o'clock, 8:30, and then being done with lecture time by like 11 o'clock. And then from noon, after we grabbed a bite to eat, till, no joke, probably like 10, 11 o'clock at night, maybe even midnight sometimes, just like hitting the books. And it's like, I think that's what differentiates some people from what they want to do is, in my opinion, if you want it bad enough, you'll put in the 8, 12, 10-hour days, you know what I mean, in a study room trying to understand the topics and the subjects, just knowing like, hey, if I get through this, there's a light at the end of the tunnel for me to do something, right?
Yeah, it's interesting the way you put it like that, because like I had no ambition to go to college out of high school. I would have left high school early if they'd have let me. Mm-hmm. But I think about that, you're saying like once you have that switch flip and you're going after it, it's the challenge that you're chasing. It's funny because I draw parallels to the same thing I've done trying to build businesses. And so you're like, right. It was 8 o'clock in the morning till midnight. And I'm like, well, I was doing the same thing. Yeah. I was just trying to build something, know?
Right.
And so it's funny. I had a quote, I reference it all the time. I love it. It's Eric Thomas talks about, he's actually talking about muscle memory. And he tells a story about Steph Curry in practice. I think he hit, I can't remember what it was now, 73 pointers in a row or something in practice. And then they were in the playoffs and he hit a shot over Anthony Davis and like 2 other guys in the corner. In the photo, he has his eyes closed, like when he's letting it go. Wow. And so the speech is kind of like, it's all about muscle memory. He hit, 73 pointers in a row. Now he's doing it over one of the tallest players in the NBA with his eyes closed, to mm-hmm. I think they were down like 20 points and they came back and won. Anyway, what's funny is it's not even that, but what he says right at the end, he's like, and guess what? Steph Curry's a human just like me. And like that hit me, man. I was like, sure, like Elon Musk might have some gifts that some of us don't have. Yeah. Sure. I mean, but dude, that dude's a human.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Bezos, Mark Cuban, I mean, name them, right? Like, yeah. I mean, they might have made decisions at a better time. Maybe there's a little luck involved. Like, it's funny when people bring up luck, it seems to people that work harder seem to be more lucky. Yeah. right. And so it's like, I don't know if it's luck or not, but yeah. Like you said, dude, it's like you take that challenge and you move forward. But anytime I'm starting to get discouraged with stuff, I just think, well, that dude I'm chasing is a human just like me. Right. Right.
Yep. And the other thing I think about too is it's like, you say luck is there, but I also think, and they say it in college, but in afterwards and in the work industry, and whether you go to college or you're self-made or you're coming up through the ranks, whatever. But I think there's a lot of credit too about like who you know and just getting that lucky break. Because I think, you know, you don't know everybody's story like an Elon Musk or whoever, you know, pick anyone out there. But at some point in time, whether they busted their butt or not, somebody somewhere had a lucky break, right? Like somebody listening to this podcast might be some great person and reach out to you and have, you know, but it's like, what did you do on episodes 1 through 95? You know what I mean? To get to 96 or whatever. And that's what gets overlooked. You just automatically see, you know, hey, all this great success. And I think the blood, sweat, and tears that went into it behind the scenes of what got somebody where they're at is what a lot of people miss and just assume like, hey, you were just gifted this and you didn't really work for it or something, you know?
That's the must be nice mentality, right?
Yeah.
It's like,
Right.
I just went to a conference about real estate investing and someone was saying that, I mean, they're a couple years younger than us and they're retired. And I was starting to think like, man, like, I've been busting balls for freaking 15 years, you know, and like, I still feel like Amanda and I are paycheck to paycheck.
Right.
And so I'm sitting there thinking like, so what was your lucky break type of thing? And then it just kind of hits me. I'm like, well, I didn't know what they went through. Like, I don't know what sacrifices they gave up.
Right.
You know, I don't know the sleepless nights, the stress. I don't know what they went through.
Right.
Hell, I don't know. Maybe they were lucky,
Yeah.
but I don't know the background.
Right.
And so it's interesting too, that it's just everyone's life plays out different.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that two people can make just about the same choices throughout their life and they're going to end up in two different places.
Yeah.
Like, it's just the way it is with life.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's a weird thing to think about. Like, I was talking to them, like I've got a buddy. Well, I'll tell the story. So Brandon Larson's been on here, right? Yeah. And they own Unleashed Pet Resort. And they're killing it. Mm-hmm. Like, they're killing it. And I couldn't be more happy for him, right? Love him to death. Love him and his mom. They own it, run it. Owner, operator, they're there every day, mm-hmm. right? But from the outside in, so like he just got a brand new C8 Corvette, right? Yeah. And like from the outside looking at their lifestyle, and not even that they're super like flamboyant, spending money, all this stuff, right? But looking at that, it's like, oh, must be nice. Yeah. You know?
Right.
And I think about like, man, like I was there when he was going through it, you know, like the stress, the hours, the 7 days a week, and it's funny to look through when you know, and you watch someone go through that. And I don't know, dude, like I said, maybe there was a little luck involved too. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to see what people are capable of and how much that they can push, you know, if they set their mind to it. And we're going to find out on Saturday where your level's at.
That's right. You know, and as you were talking about, like the whole must be nice. And I think that's where like the mentality of, in my opinion, society's gone nowadays.
100%.
We want the magic pill that'll make us lose weight. We want the magic, you know, jab or whatever to make us healthy, or, you know, whatever we got to do so we can do the least amount possible and get the maximum benefit. Maybe that's just the human mentality, but I think like the way we're, you know, bred and stuff like that is like how you got to work hard. And I think that's what we're missing nowadays and stuff. If you want to really make it, sometimes you got to work hard and bust your butt, you know what I mean? And looking back, it's like, yeah, there were days where I was running on 2 hours of sleep, you know, and going into finals and stuff like that with 2 or 3 Red Bulls, just trying to like make ends meet and, you know, stress to the max and stuff like that, you know, there were times where I was getting like such bad anxiety, I didn't even know what they were. And I'd have an anxiety attack. And I remember we were living in Salt Lake, and it's like, I guess it's an anxiety attack, you'd call it, like hit me. And I literally thought I was having a heart attack. So I like went home and told the wife like, hey, I think we need to go to the hospital. I can't even breathe and stuff like that. And I get there and they're like, oh, this is fine. Nothing's wrong with you and stuff. But it's like, how far can you push your body to get to the max and stuff? And with that mentality as well, like that's part of the reason why I wanted to do like an Ironman event too, is it's like, you know, going through college, sitting in a study room for 10, 12 hours a day, I got fat, you know what I mean? Like I put on more than the freshman 15. It was like the junior and senior 50 kind of thing. Like I was the worst shape of my life, you know, but I'm sitting there and I was like the only person that's going to change this is me. Doesn't matter who else wants it more, who else wants to be fit or healthy or any of that kind of stuff. And I mean, I'd still carry some pounds around the mid and stuff like that, but it's like I feel better today than I do when I was in my 20s. Heck, maybe even in high school and stuff. I was a little thinner then, but it's like the only person that had the power to change that was me. And I think as I go through life more, it's like I have the power to really affect myself as well as how do I influence others and stuff. And I think it's like a 7 habits thing that stays with me too, is like, what's your circle of influence and what's your circle of concern? And I really kind of had to reflect myself of like, how much time am I spending with myself and with others in the circle of concern? And how much more time could I be spending in the circle of influence?
Why is being fit important to you?
I think being fit is important because, you know, as we're growing older and stuff, I see like my parents and stuff, you know, their health starting to decline and stuff like that. And I want to be like more active and stuff with my kids. And heck, I even see people, not even Ironmans, just in marathons or triathlons, anything, whatever out there. There's like 60, 70, maybe even sometimes like 80-year-old people that are doing these events. And I'm like, man, I'm in my 30s busting my butt. How is somebody in their 60s or 70s doing this? And it's like, I think an overall healthy lifestyle is going to help us live longer, right? We weren't made to just get fat and sit on a couch for, you know, the rest of our life.
Well, I ask you that for a reason, because for me, like it's just never been a priority for me. Mm-hmm. And it's funny, like I go to these last few months, and even next month I have conferences for coaching things that I'm in and whatnot, right? And I go to these and I'm overweight, but I don't think about it, right? You know? Yeah. And so but I go to these events sometimes and I'm like, I kind of just start looking around and I'm like, damn, dude, like everyone in here, looks like a gym addict, you know? Yeah. And not even I don't even have negative self-talk to myself about it, but it's it's on my mind enough, I guess, that I realize other people. And I was at one event and we were all talking and I was the only one there that was overweight. and again, it wasn't even a thought process to me. And I don't know if you follow Andy Frisella, but he does a 75 hard.
Oh yeah.
Have you heard of that?
Yeah.
So he's the one that came up with that.
Okay.
And it was his coaching group is where I was. Yeah. And so half the people there are in the middle of 75 hard right now. Yeah. You know. And so one of the things is you don't drink alcohol. Yep. And one of the dinners we went to had an open bar. And these guys were like, shiz, man, I'm on 75 hard, so I guess I'll take a water, you know. Yeah. And so we kind of got on the subject of that and talking about it, and I was like, and I kind of jumped in and said, dude, I'll be honest, it's just not that important to me. Yeah. And maybe it should be. I don't know. I do note it that. I think having our 2-year-old son, that's what, if anything makes me think about it, it's that. Yeah. And not even that he's we're doing anything that crazy, but getting on the ground, playing with him, riding his bike, doing these different things. Yeah. And I just realized I'm out of breath earlier than I thought I should be. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So, I think it's something too, if you can just find something you enjoy, right? Because part of the thing when I was talking earlier about the cycling and stuff, even if I'm not going out with a group, it's a nice release, you know, to just go out and just take your mind off of things for a while and know that you're getting in some good cardio and some good exercise, but at the same time, you can just go let your mind be free and stuff like that. And that's at least what it does for me. So it's obviously a constructive way to release where, you know, maybe I'm vegging out in front of a TV show or something like that, drinking some soda or something. I'm not saying that's bad because I still do that from time to time, but know that hey, a couple times a week, I'm going to get out on the bike and try and find a healthy release and stuff. And so I think it's just finding that balance, because if you get too far one way or the other, then it's quits being fun. And I think that's where the training even for this event and stuff started to go, is it's some of those days and weeks, man, it was a grind. Didn't want to get up, didn't want to, you know, do it at night, but they're you're dragging yourself to get on the bike and you're just taking all you can to put in 30 minutes of a 2-hour ride or something. You just call it quits because you just hit a wall. And it's you know, I don't want it to be like that where it's a chore, because then it's losing its luster for me and stuff. Where after this, you know, maybe regroup and see what it's going to take and stuff. So
it's a good way to think about it. it's funny, dude, because I just don't have that same mentality. Like, so we kind of got on this discussion with that group of people where like I'm a control freak. Like, and that it was a great thing to launch businesses, but now like where I'm trying to figure out how to delegate and put in systems, and like it's a curse now. But like in the beginning, I think I had to be that way, right?
Yeah.
And now it's like a curse because I can't just let someone do it. I'm like, well, shit, dude, I'll just do it myself. Like it's just easier for me to do it, you know? And the last 5 years, I've really been trying to figure out how to like, and it's funny because for people, it's simple, you know? So we were talking about this and they were like, well, it's more about like you control. So think about it as you controlling and disciplining yourself. They're like, you're disciplined with work, right? And I was like, yeah, dude, I don't stop when I'm tired. I stop when I'm done. Like when I'm working, I'll work 24 hours if that's what it takes to get it done.
Yeah.
And they're like, you got to think about it the same way. It's a challenge that you're taking on, and it's something you're controlling, your health and your fitness. And like, I mean, not that I've done anything in the last 2 weeks, but it was a different shift in my mind of like, and Ed Milet talked about it too. Ed Milet's been like just stacked, just huge, thick. And he recently has like dropped some muscle mass. So like he's still cut, but he's not as bulky. Yeah. And he said that he's like, I did this because I needed a change. And it was something I could 100% control. Right. And so we dropped size. And I was like, that's interesting that like he needed a control check. And so that's what he did with his control check. Yeah. And I guess I've just never looked at it that way. Cause like going to the gym every day, like just, I don't know, dude, I can't even see myself doing that.
Yeah. And definitely the gym wasn't for me. And so that's why I found, solace in like cycling and running and swimming, because that's stuff I can do on my own or, at my own pace and rate and stuff like that. And I don't have to worry about going to a gym or whatever. I can do it all in the comfort of my home or out on a road somewhere or something, and it was a good pastime. The other thing that got me thinking is you were talking too about like delegating and stuff and like trying to help you with your tasks and like people that you're working with and stuff. Something that kind of stood out to me as I got out of college and stuff and started going to work, and not only work, but just hanging out with friends and people like in, similar religious beliefs and stuff like that, the church, and getting like callings and stuff. One thing that's kind of helped me grow and to a more of a manager's role that I'm in now and like delegating and stuff like you said is I remember there was a time when like something needed to be done, right? And I got a call or a text or an email or something like that asking me to like reach out to somebody and say like, hey, we got this activity or we got something going on. Can you be there? Can you bring this? And I was thinking to myself, I was like, why did you text me to text this person or do this when like you could have just sent that yourself and we could have saved everybody a whole lot?
Yeah.
And when I started talking to him about it, he's like, if I did that, then I'm not allowing you to grow, right? And so when I was thinking about that, like I've tried to apply that into my life and things that I'm doing. It's like, yeah, the CEO of our company, he could probably blast out an email to a lot of people and get things out there, but then he's bypassing a lot of stuff. And I'm sure it's more complicated than that. But what I'm getting at is like what you're also trying to do is grow and develop these people, because like in your situation, if you're always doing stuff for people and not allowing them to grow and fail and stuff like that, and that's what I'm learning with kids too, is it's like if I always just go and do it for them, what growth are they going to have and what learnings are they going to have and stuff. And so I think as you were talking about some of those things you're going with and like, hey, I'll just go do it. It'll take me 2 minutes where I'm going to spend 30 trying to explain it to you, and I'm probably going to end up doing it at the end anyways.
Right.
It's like, maybe some people just can't cut it, but at the same time, if you never let them grow, how do you know?
Right. Well, and I think that people are just at a different baseline now, like hiring. I mean, I like hiring high school kids because I feel like I can just mold them like how I want. Yeah. And I'm not even great at that. I mean, for the most part, what the employee duties that I have is like, I just need a body there. Like our retail store, like Abe's great. And I brag about him all the time on the show. He's a senior in high school, but like really for the most part, I just need someone there. So I'm not there. Yeah. Right. And he has a lot of other things that he tackles and takes care of too. But I've had to realize systems in a business, I will be the system until I create systems. Yeah. And so I'm actually listening to a book right now that my brother Adam told me to listen to. And he must have been in tune with something, because it's like exactly what I needed to hear. It's called Traction.
Okay.
And that's what it goes through. And I'm not very far into it. I just started yesterday listening to it, but it walks you through everything. And so as far as I am through the book right now, like if people are struggling with that, and I think it could be anything, like you were saying, church callings.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had church callings where I just did it all too.
Yeah.
And like I had advisors and stuff, but I just did it all too.
Right. Yeah.
And but not, I mean, you're handicapping those people that should be having the growth as well, like you said.
Yep.
So that's interesting. I've never thought about it like that. So with your 3 girls, what are some things as a dad that you're trying to teach them, or advice that you want them to live by? Do you have like any family core values? What do you have? Do you have anything like that?
I think at this point in time, obviously, I think it'll progress and change and grow as they get older and stuff like that. But at this point in time, I'm really trying to take advice that people always say is just like be present in the moment, take it in. Like, when you were pretty shocked that the oldest is 7, and I think to myself, yeah, that's crazy. But it's like, trying to take them in at each phase of their life and stuff like that. Like what she needs at 7 is different than what, the middle child needs at 2, and what, or at 3, and then what the baby needs at 2 and stuff like that. And so I really think just trying to like be present and look around. And I think, one thing that stands out to me, to kind of go on another tangent, is like how fast time goes, right? We've almost been out of high school now as much as we were in high school, or at school in general, not just high school, but school, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm thinking like, where the heck did time go, right? Because me moving out of this place, like I still think of Derick Legg as the guy with a few older brothers, down the street, just like chilling, playing ball and stuff, or like Will going skateboarding, or like Gibson, washing the sidewalk and stuff on the corner, things like that, or like chilling and stuff. And I'm thinking like so much has happened and stuff. And so that's why, like with my kids, I'm trying to like understand that how do I be a father to them and provide them the lifestyle that I think that they want, but also allowing them to like have the lifestyle that they want as well, because it's like, I think some of us grow up that really didn't have much. And so we think we can just shower our kids with all this stuff. And it's like, is that truly what we needed? Because, yeah, we didn't have a lot, but I think at the end of the day, we were still a pretty happy bunch. You know what I mean? Like, none of us ended up really too bad. I think there were a couple people in Dogtown there that were a lot worse off than we were, for sure, And it's like, how can we help them? And I think that's like a lot of the self-help that I try and think to myself too. And another thing that like stands out in my mind is like, there's people out there that, remember, or however it goes, it's like there's people out there that remember a version of you from 10 years ago that no longer exists and stuff. And so like, that's what I'm trying to be cognizant of as well, as it's like what I might remember about somebody or something or some individual, like that person might not even be that way or any of that kind of stuff. And like I said earlier, what you and Blake remembered about like me and stuff. I mean, you guys were like name dropping like crazy. I was like, dude, you guys have all these memories that I like don't even remember and stuff. And so like when I look back on life, another thing I wanted to, bring up was like how Blake talked about his situation that he had, and his accident and stuff like that. And, I've never expressed it to him or to anybody else, quite frankly, but it's like I look back on that situation and like that's one of my regrets in life, and that's kind of why like I wanted to be more active to kind of tie it back to the Nicole situation too, is like I remember when that accident happened with Blake and like we were a pretty tight group and stuff like that. And for whatever reason, like life happened, right? And as a high schooler or however old we were, like I don't think we really cared, right? But it's like I totally disregard Blake and his situation and pretty much abandoned the guy, right? And so now, knowing what I know now and like being older and stuff, I'm like, dude, we totally bailed on the kid. And he was like sitting at home curled up, and I'm sure in some pretty bad places, and like didn't even have the audacity to like reach out or do anything. Maybe more people did.
Yeah,
but like
it wasn't me. Yeah.
Yeah, when I self-reflect on it, I'm like, that's an honest regret that I have, is like not being there for a friend that we had and stuff like that. And I don't know how he acted, or reacted to the situation and stuff. And obviously, I think we've mended ways now and stuff. But I look back on those situations and I'm like, how could I have been a better friend and a better person and stuff? And so that's even like now, we'll have some of our text groups going with some of our friends and doing like final, a fantasy or whatever, things like that, March Madness and stuff. But it's like, how can I make cognitive efforts to reach out to old friends or family or something? And even if it's just like, hey, what's going on or something like that, and I won't drop his name, but, one of our high school buddies, few months back or something made a post that like, hey, I'm going through some pretty hard times right now. I'm going to check into rehab and stuff like that. And it was like, oh, I didn't even know you were struggling with any of that stuff, and he's got a wife and kids and things like that. And so like I had the impression a couple weeks ago that I messaged his wife on Facebook or something like that. I was just like, hey, what's his number? And like, is there a way to reach out to him? Is he checking social media? And it was as simple as just like, hey, don't know what you're going through. I can't relate, but just wanted to let you know I'm thinking of you. And, for whatever reason, I felt the need to just reach out and say I love you and I, praying for you and hope the best for you and stuff. And I think a lot of us get those impressions a lot and we don't do anything about it. And I know I don't. I get them for family. I get them for friends and stuff like that. And it's like, how can we be more present with the ones that we do know about, and stuff like that? Because like I said, we've been out of school now for as many years as we've almost, been alive and stuff like that. Like half of our life now has been out of school. And so it's like all these kids, me and you, we don't stay in touch and stuff like that. But it's like, if we were these great childhood friends and stuff, like how can we be in touch more? And I'm not saying, we're going to be singing Kumbaya and stuff after this podcast and stuff like that. But it's like, how do we act on those impressions more as humans to really get that personal connection that we need?
Yeah, I've been trying to be more aware of that, even just sending texts out every now and then. Hey, man, just thinking about you, and that it's hard because it's like life's going so fast.
Yeah.
I've got things to do all the time. Right. The majority of the time, my phone, I have like a number of unread texts. So it's not like I'm sitting there trying to find people to text a lot of the time, right? Mm-hmm. And like it's funny, I was explaining this to my property manager for our rental a day or two ago, where like I'll go like 2 or 3 days that she's sent me a text or two and I haven't even responded because I'm like, I'll deal with that later and I'll just push it off. Well, then it's like when I set time aside to deal with it, I send her like 7 paragraphs. And so I finally just called her the other day and I'm like, hey, I don't know if you've noticed how I work yet, but like I've got so many things going on and I know that this isn't like super high on my list of things to take care of because it's not time sensitive. I was like, but I don't know if you noticed when it is time for me to take care of it, I'm like just over doing it, on input. And she was like, she started laughing. She's like, yeah, I've got to notice that. She's all, but it's nice because then I can sit here and hammer everything out that you want done instead of like 1 thing yesterday, 2 things today. And so it just kind of made me laugh. But I've tried to be that guy recently where, and it's funny, dude. My example of it is I text all my brothers. I mean, it's probably been a year now, but I text all my brothers and I was like, hey man, just wanted to let you know I love you. Hope everything's going okay, whatever.
Right.
And I talk to my brothers pretty often. We all live here, right? And I think every one of them called me and was like, are you okay? But it hit me to be like, well, I clearly don't do this enough, that I can just send a text out saying, thinking about you. And then they all think I'm like contemplating life or something,
Yeah. Right.
But yeah, dude, I think that there is no bad that could ever come from any of that.
Right.
Even just set a reminder. That's something I've thought about doing. Like, I just don't want to make it to where it's like structured because I feel like it's not as genuine, if that's the right word. But I've tried to just be more aware of like, hey, who do I need to be thinking of? Yeah. And like our buddy Danny Hafelman, he's supposed to come on here. I think he's coming into town sometime and we need to get him back on. But and I don't even think anything was going on. But I was just like, I just texted him, hey man, haven't talked to you for a while, just checking in. And a couple days later he texts me back and he's like, sorry dude, I've been busy, but yeah dude, how you doing? And I've had that with a handful of people, but I just mentioned him because we have him in common.
Yeah.
But yeah, dude, I told a story on here a little bit ago where, I mean, I've been under a ton of stress like the last 6 months. We bought this vacation property and I've just been over my skis with it, dude. Like I just bit off way more than I could chew.
Yeah.
And mentally it's just tested me. And the story I told, I was bringing safes back from Salt Lake and I ran out of gas on I-15 or ran out of diesel. Right. And I like luckily could coast off of an on-ramp. It was 28 degrees outside, truck's dead, can't start it. I was just having a full on panic attack.
Yeah.
And it ended up, worst thing I could have done is I called my wife like halfway through it because I thought I had myself under control. And then as soon as she was like, hey, what's up? I just lost it. and she thought like safes had fallen on me and I was on the side of the road or something.
Yeah.
But anyway, so long story short, I ended up having a buddy coming from Salt Lake to St. George and he was like an hour behind me. So he stopped and picked me up. We went and got fuel, came back, and then he followed me home. And as grateful as I am for that, since then, and we've seen each other and talked and, lunch and whatnot. But every now and then he'll just send me a text and be like, hey man, just buddy checkup. How's everything going?
Yeah.
And I'm like, just to like people, you don't have to be super open with it, but just having someone check in with you, make sure everything's going good when you're taking on challenges all the time.
Right.
I don't know. It's been a huge thing for me personally. Maybe other people don't need that, but it's something I need.
Yeah. No, I think that's huge, and it helps bring the human aspect to it and stuff. Cause like you said, life's going so fast and you don't know what people are going through or what challenges. And, I've had people tell me like, hey, when you called me that weekend, that was pretty rough. And I just needed something to help clear my head or clear my mind. And I was like, man, seeing how things are going, and I don't expect you to spill your life's beans and all the crap you're going through when I text or call you, but maybe it might be that little bit of, rejuvenation or clear your head or something like that you need to help refocus or something.
Yeah. I mean, it's helped me out for people that have done it to me. I got a couple questions written down here that I want to go through with you real quick. And then I think we're almost an hour. So, what's the hardest thing that you've had to deal with as a dad?
Oh, I think keeping my temper under control. I think it's one of them things that when people say that they've never yelled at their kids, I don't know how they say it with a straight face, but I think it's just like watching your kids fail is a big one. But now, as the 7-year-old's getting older, like seeing the I wouldn't call it evil, but just the life of the neighborhood, I guess. Like watching her come home heartbroken and stuff from not playing with friends, or like, this girl's playing with this girl and doesn't want her home anymore or want her to play and stuff. And I think as a parent, like that really rips at your heartstrings and stuff. Or like, I don't think it was a real note, but she got some note from a girl that was like, hey, I don't want to be your best friend anymore or something like that. And so I think like dealing with that kind of stuff as a parent is hard, but I mean, just normal parenting day in and day out, it's kind of what it is. But watching them grow older and like letting them fail is probably the most challenging as a parent for me, at least.
What do you think's changed you the most?
As a parent?
Yeah. Like just having kids in general, even daughters, because I don't know what that's like. I have one son, so what's it like having daughters?
Yeah, and I don't know what it's like having sons. I only have girls, right? And so, I mean, I think what's changed me is just knowing that, like, these are humans as well, and whether you believe it or not, but I believe like in a God and Jesus and stuff like that. And it's like, he's entrusted me, or they've entrusted me to help raise these humans here in their mortal journey and like try to figure out how to help them, one, learn about, Heavenly Father and Jesus and like understand what role they have in their life and what the plan of happiness is about, and like, why we're here and why there's an atonement and why Jesus came and stuff like that. But I think really just like helping them understand, what that means in their life and stuff. And like, as they're growing up, having that role and that figure in their mind, I think is important.
What about as a husband? What's it like? Any lessons, anything? If someone's getting married tomorrow, what do you tell them?
Yeah, I think as a husband, that's been the most rewarding thing, because for me, it's like I still can't grasp it today, but like opening up and loving someone unconditionally and knowing that someone loves me unconditionally. I don't think that there's ever like a time in life where you just say like we have it all. But I think that's been the greatest thing, and that's my thing is I'm thinking about my journey and stuff through everything that I've done is I don't like take that success as just me. Like when I cross that finish line on Saturday, I'm crossing it with my wife and, with my daughters and everyone else that supported me along the way. They won't physically cross it, but like in my mind, it was weird because people like say they envision like holding up a Super Bowl trophy or holding up the Stanley Cup or the NBA trophy or whatever it is. And it's like, how can you do that? But I remember there were like specific times sitting in my basement, I'd have the podcast, and I'm not saying that to butter you up, but I'd have the podcast going, and it's like I would be riding on my trainer watching this virtual, platform that I'm riding on. But like in my mind, I would start going to a place where I like see myself cycling and like, cause I'm familiar with the area. So that probably helped. But like I would familiarize myself and like cycling through and then getting on the run. And then like I envisioned myself like literally crossing the finish line and stuff like that, as all this is going on. And so I bring that up as you say, like as a husband and stuff like that, having a wife, because it's like so much more. And since you already dropped his name, I'll bring him up again, like watching Hafelman, him and his wife, it seems like they're pretty happy and they've gone through some pretty hard times, and the stuff they share on social media and stuff is it's like, they're seem pretty happy right now, but there's so much more to go, I'm sure. And it's like, that's where we're all at in our relationships with our significant others and stuff like that. And so it's like, there's just so much more, and having that support and stuff to know that I'm going to go out and I'm going to go on a 4-hour bike ride on Saturday while she's back behind with the kids dealing with screaming and fighting, and in her mind I'm sure I'm just out there living on cloud nine, just well, I'm sweating my tail off, but at the same time like she's staying back dealing with all that stuff, and I'm the one driving here while she's taking care of kids, handing out snacks and movies and playlists, and the list goes on, and she stays at home now. And I mean, I have the 40-50 hour work week like any other person working corporate America, but at the same time I would rather do this 100 times over than do what she does staying at home. It's like that's a crazy gig, and hats off to them or anybody that's doing that, and especially single parents working and taking care of kids. Like having your own now puts a whole different perspective on stuff. Seriously. It's like you're going to school, you're working, and you're taking care of kids, and you're trying to fill in for when the holidays come, making sure they've got the the essentials at holiday times or any significance. On top of that, it's like, as you start to live life and step back and think about like what some of these people are going through, it's like, man, there's a lot of people out there with a lot harder life than what I've got, for sure.
Did you ask permission or anything with your wife to do the Ironman, or was there any conversation, or you were just like, I'm in?
I think it was one of those things where it was like, this is a goal I want to do. And like I said, it was probably around 2021 or something like that when I was looking around at it, and it was like, yeah, this is something that's going to be coming down the pipe, and I think I want to do it. And she's like, okay. And I didn't know if she thought I was just not going to stick with it, because I've had a habit of that too, like finding a hobby or something, and it's like a fling for a couple months or a little while, and maybe she thought that was going to be it, and now here we are. And so maybe she's like, oh, he was serious, and so we're committed now.
Yeah. I asked because Amanda just signed up for the St. George Marathon, and she's done half marathons. She's done a marathon. I might be eating my words on that one. But anyway, it's a funny story. So like I keep a pretty close eye on our bank account and I see a payment go through to St. George City for, I think it said like St. George Marathon.
Yeah.
and I was just kind of like, oh, I guess Amanda's doing the St. George Marathon.
Yeah.
And then like 2 days later, she texts me and she's like, hey, I want to do the St. George Marathon. Do you care if I do it? And I'm totally ratting her out.
Yeah.
Dude. But she's like, do you care if I do it? And I'm like, I already saw you pay for it. So apparently I have to be okay with it.
Yeah.
But it's funny because, I mean, it is a commitment, dude, from the spouse too. Like, I mean, you're what your wife had committed to is a lot more than what I've committed to, but
Right.
it's different, dude. 'Cause it's like, okay, so my schedule's changed a little bit too now, to make sure that she can follow through with that goal. Right. So it's just kind of funny little story about Amanda. And she's like, well, I could get my money back if you didn't want to. And I'm like, it's fine. It's just funny that you asked me and I already saw you pay for it.
That's right.
Your permission.
Once you're registered, then you're committed. So that's why you just sign up for it.
Last thing I've asked a few guests, and I want to remember to keep asking people is, dude, when you're sitting there 60 years old, what's success to you? What would be a successful life to you? 80 years old, whatever, put your number on it.
Yeah. So I think, as we were talking about it and looking at what success is for me, kind of has different aspects, however you want to flip it. I think there'll be a personal success aspect that's like, I had a good career and I was able to raise a good family and, be able to not go without and have what we needed and stuff like that. We might not have all the fancy bells and whistles and stuff, but, I can say at that point in time in life, like, my kids didn't have to go without and we weren't like eating leather shoes or something crazy like that they've done in the past, or you watch like 17 Miracles and we didn't cross the plains with hand carts and stuff like that, And so I think that's an aspect of success for me, knowing that like I busted my tail and I did the best I could to give my family the best life that I could possibly give them. And then I think another aspect of success too is not only reflecting on myself, but like, what did I do to help others and stuff? And I think that's the progression in my life that I'm going through now is like, as I was growing up, going through those early school years in high school and stuff like that, and even into college, it was, a lot about like me and stuff. What do I got to do? And I really wasn't worried about anybody else and stuff. And now I've seen like my life and my mental capacity and state like change of how do I help make others, more successful or make their life easier. Again, going back to that human aspect of it is like, how do we relate to these people and like show love and compassion and stuff like that? And, again, to go back to the whole Nicole thing and stuff and bring it full circle, it's like, that's the transformation that I'm going through now is like, how do you show compassion to these people that really you might not have much connection with, but, have some sympathy or empathy for them and like show them that you care and stuff like that. And I think, as the world is going through these, tumultuous times and having this turmoil and whatever topic or situation you want to bring out, there's polar opposites all over. And I've had my times where I've thrown the jabs out on social media or something like that, and it's like, yeah, I might agree with what I'm posting, but at the same time, are we like building walls or are we knocking down walls and stuff? And so that's why I've like tried to tone that back. And I really want to like understand what are people's views on the other side, like people that don't agree with me politically or religious or any of that kind of stuff, and it's like, why do you believe that way or why do you think that way? And I think to go back then to your question is like, what success is, at the end of the day, how can I say like, yeah, I tried to understand Derick's views or I tried to understand so-and-so's views and I might not agree with them, but I'm not going to treat you like dirt because of it. I'm going to, at the end of the day, agree to disagree, but how do we still find common ground and stuff? And then, hopefully at my funeral, people are having some good eulogies and stuff and saying nice things about like, yeah, he did try and break down barriers and, wanted to bring people to more of a human aspect and like show love to his fellow man or woman or whatever, and I think that's what success in a couple of compound ways and complex ways would be.
See, that's funny, dude, that you bring that up because I've talked a little bit in high schools. I've mentioned that multiple times, but every time I'm in there talking about success, and this is like something I need to work on, success to me is like, well, how much money are you going to make? And so like when I go in there, and I actually had one of the teachers kind of correct me. They were like, okay, not everything's money, right? And so I had to like kind of switch my presentation to like your goals, like success to achieve your goals, whether that's a white picket fence and a family or that's Fortune 500 company that you built from nothing, whatever that is. It's because to me, I'm like, I'm money driven. I want to make a lot of money, And so every time I go in and talk to them, I'm like, okay, I need to understand that like not everyone's goal is to, you know, do $1 million a year. Like that's not everyone's goal. And that necessarily wouldn't even make everybody happy. I don't know if it'll make me happy. I haven't hit it yet, you know? But there's definitely other steps to it. So when I asked you that, I appreciate that, like, you didn't talk about really money. I mean, like making sure your needs are met with your family, right? But it's not, I want to do $1 million and be able to take my family on vacation every other week or whatever that is. So no, I appreciate that answer. It's an eye opener for me, and it kind of grounds me. Cause like I said, everything with me is just money. Yeah. And I don't know.
Scrooge McDuck someday diving in your silo of coins.
Well, I would hope that when I die, people don't think I was all about money. But I mean, I think doing a podcast and losing money every month might prove that. But I think money for me is so high up on there because I do believe, like, you can donate 10% to your church. You can volunteer at the rest home. You can, like Bishop Storehouse is a big thing for our religion, you know, whatever that is. And I'm like, that's cool, but I want to build 3 Bishop Storehouses and staff it, you know? So like, that's the money for me isn't Scrooge McDuck dive boarding off into coins. Right. Like, I just think like, what more could I do if I had that money? Right. And that's where the podcast was born. Like I had a little bit of money and I didn't think it was enough to really change anything, but it was enough to pay for a podcast every month. And so that's where it came from.
My 7-year-old, this is one thing she's about, and I'll ask it to you because it came to my mind when we were driving out here. She's always about, would you rather?
Okay.
So she said, or I asked her, and I don't think she got it, but since you're talking about money, would you rather have $1 million for a day that you can't take? You just got to have it for that one day. I guess you can invest it or whatever, but $1 million for a day, or would you rather have $100 every day the rest of your life?
So after the 24 hours, that money's gone.
Yeah, I mean,
the day.
Yeah, you got to spend it within the 24.
I'd take $100 a day.
Yeah,
I think so. I think I could do more with that than, I mean, 1,000. I mean, I don't know, dude. I mean, maybe can I do both? Like if I have $1 million on one day, does that mean I can't have any more money the rest of my life?
The 7-year-old, she doesn't put all these qualifiers on it.
You're like, it was a lot simpler when you asked her.
That's right. See, I mean, you could take the $1 million up front though, because you're not guaranteed tomorrow, right? So you think you could have another 60 years on your life and make quite a bit that way, or who knows? But
I don't know.
My mind.
I'll answer it this way. I'll take the $100 a day because I think that you need to learn how to have $1 million or whatever that number was, $1 million. I think that you have to grow to 1 million to even know how to appreciate it. Yeah. Right. Like, I think that's why athletes and lottery winners and like they don't know how to handle it because they didn't have to grow to that number. Right. So I guess that's my answer. $100 a day. That's what I want.
There you go.
All right, dude. Anything else?
No.
Anything else you want to go through?
Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, dude. How? I guess Ironman will be over by the time this airs. So, so good luck.
Yeah. Thank you.
How do I follow you on that?
There's the like Ironman tracker app.
It's just like
so you can go in there and download the app and then put in my name and
it just brings you up. Is it like live?
Yeah.
So there's a little tracker in your bib or something?
Yeah, on my ankle. So as you cross
like wear it.
checkpoints and stuff like that, it'll give you times and stuff like that.
That's cool, dude. What are you trying to do? What's your goal? To finish. Yeah. Just finish?
Yeah.
Yeah. What's your strongest? Cycling?
I'd say swimming, then cycling.
Really?
Yeah.
So everyone says if you've got the swimming down, that's a huge advantage. Mm-hmm. So you're pretty confident in the swimming.
Yeah.
You've done other triathlons, haven't you?
Yeah, I've done like short sprint distances and stuff around home and whatnot. So, I mean, this was quite a bit, a big step up. It's probably like, 3-4 times the distance of what I was doing and stuff. Yeah. But definitely. Dude,
I'm thinking we can cut this out if there's nothing there, but wasn't there like a big project you did in college at the U that you guys were like super recognized on?
Oh, the Chemi car?
That? I don't remember. I remember there was something.
Oh, yeah. There was like this club in the chemical engineering department that we were a part of that was like called the chemical engineering car, the Chemi car. It was just like a group of students that would get together and like work on stuff. And so it was like this little shoebox size car. It wasn't like a big car, but it was like just a shoebox sized car of something that had to like run on a chemical reaction and then stop on a chemical reaction. And so like the U had never done anything. I think the best they'd gotten was like maybe top 10, maybe outside the top 10, like top 15-ish or something like that. And so like I've always kind of been good with my hands and like working with Legos and like fixing stuff and things like that, right? So I actually the first go around to the club, it was like a bunch of kids that thought they were just like cool and smart and stuff, and they'd been on the team. And so like my first introduction to the team like really wasn't much of anything. And so I was like, this is pretty lame, and it wasn't much. And then it wasn't until this guy came in, and his name was Joey, and he was pretty mechanically inclined like me, right? So he was on the team then and like pretty involved. And I started being buddies with him. He's like, hey, come check this out. And I was like, nah, that's pretty lame. And like the kids in there weren't that cool or weren't that, like welcoming and stuff like that. And so I was like, okay. And so then like me and John actually went and with Joey into the club and stuff like that and saw that he'd been like changing their mind because they were like having skateboard wheels like taped together with like pencils and stuff like that and duct tape, and like they were wondering why a wheel would fall off at a competition and the car wouldn't do anything right. So like Joey was putting in all this work to get like actual like differentials from RC cars and things like that and axles and things and whatnot onto the car so it actually steer and go and whatnot. And so I was like, hey, this guy's got it together. He actually knows what he's doing. This isn't like some homegrown stuff, right? And so like we were actually involved with him, and like he, I think, really helped build it up to what it was. And so like I helped build on top of that, and we kind of like had a good group working together on it. And so then we actually competed in our region, which is the Mountain West region, and I think took first or second there. And then we went to nationals and ended up beating out nationals. And when we say nationals, it's like a lot of schools from around the world, not just the country and stuff, but these are like top Ivy League schools like Cornell and stuff like that we beat out on this stuff. And so like going to the top for the U, in my opinion, was a pretty big deal, and also bringing that recognition to the engineering department for the chemical engineering at the U and stuff. And it's like that was just some success that we brought to the department and to the team. And since then, I mean, not to sound boastful, but I don't think they've done anything like that again, and they haven't gone to nationals even with the same car like the next year and stuff. They couldn't repeat what we did. And so I think hats off to those that were on the team with us and working together to build something successful for sure.
That's cool, man. We'll wrap it up if you got nothing else.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Awesome, dude. Thanks for carving out some time. I know you got a lot of family that probably want to see you while you're in town. So, all right, guys, episode 96. First friend I can remember of my life. So 7 years old.
That's right.
First friend I ever made in Washington, Utah. So, dude, thanks for coming. Appreciate it. All right, guys, you like that? Thanks for staying with us. Like, follow, share, comment, interact with us. And we'll post the time that you did on the Ironman too. We'll keep track of it.
There you go.
All right, guys, we'll see you next week. There it is, dude.